Welcome to PR Talk, sponsored by the PRSA of Oregon and part of the MPN, the Marketing Podcast Network. I'm your host, Amy Rosenberg, founder of Veracity and author of A Modern Guide to Public Relations. So you have reached the portion of the podcast where I'll be going over portions of my book, A Modern Guide to Public Relations. And so if you have any questions or want more information, you can either drop a comment below, or you could pick up a copy of the book anywhere they sell books online, if it's a major bookseller. And if you disagree with anything I'm talking about, or you have a better way to do something, definitely let me know. You can follow us on social. We're at Veracity Marketing on Instagram and LinkedIn. And you could give a comment. You could also tell us maybe you want us to cover something else. We are open to suggestions. Thank you for your support. Hi. Okay. Get ready for a doozy. We have moved on to chapter 5, which is working with print and online. And right now we're going to talk about timelines. So we're just going to try and quickly go over, well, it's not going to be quick because nothing's ever quick, either with me or in PR. We're going to try and go over all of the different mediums and talk about the timelines. And I say try just because this might be a little easier if it was kind of written down in a grid. So I think we'll probably do that for you, get that up somewhere. Well, and it's in the book, but you know, if you don't want to buy the book. So first of all, I'm going to just kind of put this book down and talk to you. So we're talking about online and print. So those are two different things, kind of. So you have to remember that sometimes what goes online also goes in print, and then vice versa. If we're talking about a media conglomerate or a print publication is also going to have a website. So whatever you get on in print might also go online. And they're all, even though I have kind of guidelines about what the timelines are, they're all going to have a little bit of nuance to them. They're all going to be a little different. And after a while, you'll begin to learn how they go. And we're just talking about timelines right now, really to get organized. So, well, the whole chapter is about working with print and online. And so after we talk about timelines, then we'll talk about what to pitch. So when we did talk about some of the tools, like how to pitch, like press release pitch, that kind of thing. Okay, that's nice. But like what to pitch now? Like, or is it how? Anyway, yeah, no, what to pitch. But first, you kind of need to know what you're dealing with. Like, what if you pitch something that will definitely not land because you've missed the timeline? So we start with timelines first and foremost in marketing because at least it organizes you. And, you know, the sky's the limit in marketing. So if you at least have some timelines that kind of weed things out or at least prioritize for you, then it feels a lot more manageable. So first, let's talk about daily newspapers. So daily newspapers, they're going to, and also it's good to talk about what they cover. So you kind of know what to pitch, but they're just going to cover anything from a mix of national and international news to whatever their local community is doing. But for the most part, if you're talking about like statewide dailies, that's what a lot of you will be pitching. They'll be covering what's happening in the state. Some of the smaller ones might be very community focused. But anyways, so with dailies, we're going to be thinking about them as approaching them daily. No, don't approach them every day. But if they're daily, it means that their timelines are going to be pretty quick because they have to write every day. And so that means you have more leeway though with them. And so you don't have a lot of lead time that you need to worry about. Whereas you'll see some of the others, there is a lot of lead time. So you might miss your mark if you don't get to them soon enough. So you can just, for hard news, like real news, you're dealing with like 2 to 1 day deadlines. So not much. But for other kind of news, I always just think of it like I always approach 3 weeks ahead, mostly with a lot of things actually. And just know that if you approach 3 weeks ahead, you might be a little early, but better to be early than sorry. But then you will have to follow up 2 weeks later. So it's okay to be early because at least you kind of get on their radar. You get like the pitch at least like formulated, and then you need to follow up, and that would be 2 weeks ahead. But now daily newspapers also have their own special sections. So those are all like, they're almost like a publication within a publication. So depending on when those come out, your deadlines can change. And so weekly publications, so that would be a special insert like on entertainment coming out every weekend. You'll want to get info to them 3 weeks ahead. Now, if it's a special section that only comes out 1 or 2 times a year, then that is definitely, you want to get out 3 months ahead. And but your drop dead is likely 6 weeks ahead. So I know that that's kind of random, but at least on your marketing calendar, you want to start kind of the work around 3 months ahead. But then the 6 weeks is your drop dead. That means like at 5 weeks, you might be too late. Okay. And so those are also going to be listed in the editorial calendars, which we will go over. And then the local community and newspapers, those are covering what's happening in the local community, as it sounds like. And so those are going to run around monthly or weekly. Now, for bigger areas, some community newspapers could run a couple times a week, but typically we're going to be looking at monthlies, and those are, you're going to want to get the info to them 2 months ahead, but 3 weeks ahead would be your deadline. Whatever that means, because they're monthly. And then weekly, you'll want to get to them 3 weeks ahead is what you're trying to do, but your drop dead is 1 or 2 weeks ahead. Now, moving on to monthly city or statewide lifestyle magazines, these you're going to want to aim to get 3 months ahead, but 6 weeks ahead would be your deadline. So kind of similar. And they're monthly. So you've got to kind of think that there's some similarities here in the monthly cadence. And so these are basically covering kind of like entertainment-based things, or if it's, you know, a statewide lifestyle magazine, it could be top issues of the state, like what movers and shakers, what's happening, political, business, that kind of thing. Quarterlies are super annoying and hard to get into. Those only come out 4 times a year. And so we have to plan 6 to 8 months a year ahead for those. And you'll want to be thinking in terms of big seasonal themes here, because you're kind of thinking, how do I plan 8 months ahead? I don't even have the client. Well, here's the thing. You can just narrow down your PR focus and not pitch these if you just get the client a little too late to pitch them. So at least you know, right? Knowledge is power. Fancy monthly magazines. So, you know, I've said the other monthly deadlines, what those are, but fancy magazines are like, you know, out of New York, and they cover like fashion or food, and they're like fancy. So that would be like Food and Wine or Forbes or Shape. Those you want to aim for 6 months ahead. But your drop dead is 5 months ahead. So what really I mean is like, it might take a month to like settle into the work. Like, you know, if you're looking at 6 months to 5 months, it might just take you a while to find the right contact. It might take a month. So at least you know you have the right contact by 5 months ahead when it's the drop dead. And then trade and vertical publications, those, I mean, it depends on when they come out, but you can kind of see what the pattern is here. Kind of, they would probably come out monthly, but I would say the deadline for these would be around 3 to 2 months ahead. So you start your work 3 months ahead, and then know that about 2 months ahead, you could be fine. Okay, so hopefully that helps. If you have questions, pick up the book. It's probably better explained in there. Hi. So I'm not playing baseball or softball. I'm just having team spirit. Go veracity. Woohoo. Okay, we're still on chapter 5, and we're going to talk about the print and online news staff titles. And I'm not going to run through all of them because that's so boring. But I'm going to just tell you who to pitch. Okay. Because that's really important. That's why I have the titles in here. It's not just like to give you the list of titles just so you know who's there. It's so you know who to pitch because you need to know who's doing what. Okay. And this is for print and online. So first of all, find out who the reporter is. So that could be who covers your beat. Beat is your subject area. You can find this out multiple ways. I think we've talked about it. It's the reporter and the editor. Sometimes just the editor is the main people you need to know. So you email the reporter, but you also want to CC the editor. That's not being overbearing. That's just to cover your ass in case they're out of town or whatever. I mean, it's the editor's job to say, oh, this reporter's out of town. So-and-so is covering it. Possibly. I mean, it's very confusing. That's the thing. So then this is why in here I say who does what to kind of give you an idea of who does what. But the editor, you'd think they'd just be sitting there editing, but not always. Like oftentimes they're just like running the newsroom too. And so there's the editor, reporter. Sometimes there won't be an appropriate reporter. So then you'll go to the editor and just ask like, hey, who is this something you guys would be interested in? Who should I send it to? And then oftentimes at larger publications, there's the managing editor. Now that one makes a lot of sense that they're managing staff, right? So with the larger places, I'll literally just send an email. Well, this was years ago when I used to do this. I would send an email saying who's covering this or who would be interested in this. And then that would be their job to tell me. And then I would send the pitch. So at least it's just like the gatekeeper, possibly. And then you do get into these fancy titles like editor in charge, editor at large. So somebody could think that's too high up, or someone could think that that's perfect. Well, you just never know. It depends. So typically that person is going to be too high up. Like you're never going to pitch the top dog. But if it's a small newspaper or whatever, and then they just don't have a regular editor, that's the editor. So the title doesn't really mean anything. And that's why when I build my list, as we've talked about previously, I don't search by title. I pull up all of the pubs, all the contacts at the pub. And then I see who has that like weird editor-ish title. That's maybe if there's one, that's it. Now, another kind of example is publisher. Typically, you would never pitch the publisher. The publisher is in charge of like the whole thing, even the ad side. Okay. And they might even be the owner of the publication. But if it's a really small organization, the publisher could be doing everything. They could also be the editor. So sometimes that does make sense when you would CC them. So hopefully the publisher's not writing as well, but you never know. And then of course, digital editor or digital producer. This could be your best friend, especially in SEO PR. So sometimes you might even want to bypass the regular reporter and just go straight to this person, but sometimes not, because sometimes you have to get the coverage. So meaning you've got to get the regular reporter to write about it in the newspaper, and then that gets pulled from the newspaper into digital platforms, whether that's social or their website or whatever. But you want to monitor what's happening on the website, and like check out, make sure your story ran on the website. And if not, kind of like nudge that editor. And then just a little bit about online news. So typically when we pitch a website, it's like a news website. Or if it's a blog, it's like an influencer run blog, like a really high profile travel blog or something. And those are going to be a little different. You're going to pitch whoever's in charge of the blog. And those names, if it's not like a news organization, they're not going to be called the editor. Possibly. It could be like the content director or blogger, I guess. So those are all going to be different. And then that's why makes our job more challenging. But that is also why we're more necessary because of that. So that's all I have on the producers. I'm sorry, on the titles. And I'm looking at my thing. It's managing producer. That's annoying. It's an annoying title. That's what we have here in Oregon with the Oregonian. Like, what's that supposed to mean? Well, it means that they were a reporter or an editor, but now everything's online anyway. So like, let's make it sound more techy because you're managing the production of something online. Okay. Have some fun. I'm going to go play baseball. Not really.
Thanks for listening. For more PR insight, be sure to check out Amy's book, A Modern Guide to Public Relations, at prtalk.co. Also, please subscribe, rate, or leave us a review.